In the Senate, my Senate district was actually the only district that was drawn in a way that did not protect the incumbent. And it was obviously very purposeful. I don't know how much of that was focused on me particularly, or how much of it was focused on a Republican unease with the fact that a Democrat had won a Republican district and they wanted it returned to a Republican Senate opportunity. But in the attempt to achieve that, the disregard for the impact on human beings, which was the most upsetting part of it for me. Come after me. I'm a tough girl. I've got tough skin. But when you come after me in a way that has a devastating and permanent impact on people who had once had a voice in electing a person to serve them and forever silencing that voice, then you've done a terrible thing. And that's what happened with Senate District 10. We have one of the largest concentrations of African Americans in the state, the third largest concentration. Every member of that community, literally to a person, precinct by precinct by precinct, was carved out of the district, the urban core of Fort Worth, and it was moved into a rural district represented by Senator Birdwell, who lives in Granbury, who represents Waco, whose district goes all the way south to Falls County. And of course, never again was that community going to have a voice, not only in electing the person who served them, but making sure that that person was going to represent their interests on the Senate floor. And then the same thing occurred with our Latino community. In Fort Worth, we have a very strong multi-generational Latino community on our near north side, and it was moved up into a Denton County district represented by Senator Nelson. And again, they would have been moved into a highly suburban Denton County, Flower Mound, South Lake complexion of a district without a voice about what would happen in the future for them. And for me, that meant we had to work very, very hard and do everything we could to undo what I believed was absolutely a violation of the Voting Rights Act. And we've so far had some success in that. We're certainly nowhere near the end of the road. We're almost to the end of the road in terms of what the interim map will ultimately be. I believe that we'll know that within the next few days. I'm fully confident that the Supreme Court is not going to stay the action of the San Antonio federal panel because they were very conservative in their action. They didn't add minority makeup or minority composition to the district. They didn't strengthen it in any way. They simply put it back to its configuration. And they were very careful to honor the legislative map throughout the state elsewhere. So I can't imagine the state's going to be able to meet that burden of showing an undue harm and to get a stay. So for the 2012 election cycle, this should be what our map looks like. But in the longer term, we still have the Section 5 claim pending in DC, the Section 2 claim pending in San Antonio. Section 5 asks the question, was there an existing coalition that was effective, that was purposefully split apart? Section 2 asks the question, could the state have done something proactively to create a minority-majority district, but they purposefully chose not to do that? We believe we have strong support to show both of those things, and ultimately think that not only will the district remain intact, but it will essentially be strengthened, because there's certainly an opportunity to do that in Tarrant County.
Now, what some of the authors of the map have said, and in fact have said it in that chair recently and have said in open court, so nothing you don't know, is that the Justice Department chose to pass on condemning the redrawing as in violation of the Voting Rights Act. What was your response to that? Were you surprised by that?
I was so surprised, incredibly disappointed, of course. And what the Justice Department essentially said was, yes, we know that this community effectively coalesced and elected Wendy Davis to the Texas Senate in '08. But there aren't other examples of that having happened. And of course, they look at how did this Senate district perform in the presidential election, and how has it performed in US Senate elections and gubernatorial elections. But what they don't understand is that in Tarrant County, because Tarrant County is just about as red can be, most Democratic candidates do not spend resources and effort actually trying to turn the vote out. We, of course, did. We worked incredibly hard. And not only did we work to turn it out, but I was actually asked to run for that seat by leaders in our minority community who saw the opportunity to elect someone who would represent the things that they care about. And it was a partnership, and the court looked at it, or excuse me, the Justice Department looked at it as though it were an anomaly. What we'd like to say is that it was actually the first time, really, that a coordinated effort occurred, and it demonstrated that they did have the capacity to effectively turn out and elect someone that they choose to elect, and it should be respected under Section 5. We hope the court will see it that way.
So in fact, there's an opportunity now, depending on how long this drags on in the courts, for you to actually demonstrate, to give them another case to put into that data set.
That's exactly right. We do have that opportunity. And this will become the benchmark for their determination, most definitely.
That's very interesting. Redistricting is so complex in a lot of ways. I mean, you talk about it very clearly, but you're obviously very well versed in it. How do you talk to your constituents about it when you go to talk to them? Or do you think that the experience of this particular experience in your particular district has highlighted this for them? In other words, how do you talk about something that's complicated to people that aren't as well versed in it?
Well, I tried to distill it in the way that I just spoke about it with you. In simplest terms, what Section 5 and Section 2 require. I certainly don't have to educate them on the impact to their community if the decision isn't changed. And I certainly haven't had to help them understand why they should be upset about it. They're extremely upset. And everyone in the community in Fort Worth and Arlington that I represent, whether they're Anglo and Republican or Anglo and Democrat or minority and Democrat or Republican, collectively say, if this isn't blatant illegal gerrymandering, I don't know what is, because we recognize who we are as a community, and for an outsider to come in and make decisions that destroy that community, it's not viewed very kindly by anyone, regardless of their political persuasion there.
I don't want to talk about redistricting the whole time, but I want to ask you kind of a more 30,000-foot question. Having now been really in the teeth of this process, which always seems to be just gruelingly political,
yes,
if you will. Is there a better way to do it?
There absolutely is. And Senator Wentworth, one of my respected Republican colleagues, has for several legislative sessions tried to introduce a new idea about how we should do that. In fact, last session, we actually passed his bill successfully. During the special session, when we didn't have to have a 2/3 vote, we passed out of the Senate a new plan for redistricting, which would create a bipartisan committee. It would take it out of the legislative process and make it one that's much more objective in nature and much more of a bipartisan partnership in nature.